Yeah, here we go now, baby. Right back into the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Before You Bet. They're live right now on the Covers YouTube and X channels. Smash that subscribe button right down there. If you are watching on YouTube, we are proudly presented by BetMGM. Make sure you check them out for all of your sports betting needs. So great big show planned here today. Let's jump right into some of these Week 5 NFL action. Professional sports bettor Hitman will be by here in a matter of seconds. We have 4 Major League Baseball playoff games. We got best bets for every single one of them. And we're going to be jumping head first into our NBA futures coverage here today. We're going to be doing team betting previews for all the high-profile teams from now right up until opening night. Jon Metler will be by. In the final segment of the show, we will be previewing the Knicks. They were in the news over the weekend. And the LA Lakers. So if you guys want to participate in the chat, I see a bunch of you guys doing so already. Hit it up over on YouTube, on X. Let us know what you like in the NFL coming up this week. What do you guys like in Major League Baseball today? And yeah, some people have noticed RIP Joe's Dolphins helmet. What else do we have here? Marquez says we might need to file a missing equipment report for Joe's Miami Dolphins helmet from the top shelf to the bottom closet in 4 fast weeks. Never mind the bottom of the closet. I'm going to throw that thing in the trash. We are now supporting the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's go Penguins. NHL season not too far off now. Okay, let's get into it here, guys. Let's start like we always do here on the Tuesday show. Let's go to our guy, professional sports bettor Hitman. How are we making out? How did week 4 treat you, my friend?
Saturday college football, very bad. Sunday NFL, very good. Monday night football, not so great. So we had some mixed days in there, but we're on the week 5.
Okay, so some best bets from Hitman for a week 5 coming up towards the end of the segment. Let's discuss a little what we saw last night, the Monday Night Football doubleheader. One of the games extremely exciting. Another one of the games made your eyes want to bleed. Of course, I'm talking about the Dolphins, Titans, and the wheels have fallen off here for the Miami Dolphins extremely quickly. They look like the worst team in football. I don't think that's much of an exaggeration here. Mike McDaniel starting to look like the second coming of Brandon Staley. Everyone was in love with the guy, but I don't know. Maybe the league has figured him out. He seems to be exposed here. He can't make a short yardage play call to save his life. So betting implications of this here. The Dolphins have started 1-3. They have a winnable game coming up next week against the Patriots, and I think they go into their bye. But you check out their season-long win total. I think a lot of people would be surprised by this. It's sitting there at 7.5. The under juiced to -135, different based on what sportsbook you go to, obviously. But is there a bet to be made here on the under at 7.5? Now, the case for the Dolphins, bouncing back here potentially. Tua's probably going to be back at some point. Bradley Chubb's probably going to be back at some point. The schedule's not ridiculous. They got the Patriots twice. They got the Raiders. They got the Browns. Who knows about the Jets? What do you think of that win total, 7.5 the rest of the way for the Miami Dolphins?
Yeah, when you sent that to me earlier and you told me about it, I was like, you know what? Like, that actually doesn't sound bad. I wasn't even aware because it's not up at all places right now because they played on Monday night and everything. But yeah, if you're seeing a 7.5 in that 140-ish range or something, I think that might be worth a play. I agree with you that Miami without Tua, and by all accounts, it seems like he's just going to miss 2 more games. But they're probably the worst team in the league without Tua. Like, it's between them and New England, the 2 teams that are playing each other this week. And I know you're like, oh, well, they played New England this week. Well, New England Patriots fans are saying, well, we play the Dolphins this week. So that does look like a coin flip game at first glance to me. I just think that even when Tua does come back, it's a flawed team. The offensive line is not good. The depth of this team, like, they can ill afford any other injuries to, like, God forbid, a guy like Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. Like, they literally do not have a third wide receiver right now. They do not have a tight end of any sorts. They haven't taken a snap with the lead this entire season, and Tua played in 2 of the games. So yeah, I kind of agree with the look that you had there. I could only look towards Miami under.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill kind of killed them last night. They get a stop first drive of the game. Miami gets the ball back. Huntley, first play of the game, a nice pass over the middle. They're driving up the field, and then they throw that backwards pass to Tyreek Hill. Hits him right in the hands. Doesn't do anything about it. That counts as a fumble. Defense picked it up. Titans got the ball. It was downhill from there for the Dolphins. So a rough watch. Miami Dolphins are 2-10 in prime time under Mike McDaniel. So he absolutely stinks in a big spot. Okay, so let's talk about the fun game of the night. The Lions Seahawks combined for 71 points in that game in Detroit. It's kind of been an underwhelming start to the season for the Lions offense, at least, but they started to look really damn good last night. It looked like the team that we had saw last season, but not so good on the defensive side of the ball. So the Lions still find themselves top 5 on the Super Bowl futures odds board. Has your opinion of them changed very much from the preseason at all?
Not much, but if I had to choose, and when I say if I had to choose, if it's like a half point up or down, because they're pretty close to what I expected. But if I had to pick one between the two, maybe just a little bit down on them from last year. The run game is what I expected. It's still a really good team in competition for the second best team in the NFC, or in fact, they probably are the second best team in the NFC. But the defense hasn't made the jump that I thought was maybe a possibility based off the additions that they made in the offseason. And Jared Goff, before last week or yesterday against Seattle, yes, that was a super efficient game by him. But he was something, I believe, like 28th in EPA and completion percentage over expected composite rankings. Like, he was not playing good for the first 3 games of the year. And obviously Detroit did a really good job taking advantage of Seattle's defensive injuries last night, and give Goff credit. I mean, the guy went 18 for 18 for 250 yards. But before that, he kind of wasn't looking himself. So, I'm pretty neutral on them from what I was preseason, but if had to pick, maybe a very slight downgrade.
Okay, let's talk about a team that's gotten off to a bit of a surprising start here. A positive start for the Washington Commanders. All of a sudden, that offense is absolutely on fire. Cliff Kingsbury doing a great job as offensive coordinator. The quarterback, Jaden Daniels, looks awesome. He looks like a sure thing for them. What do you think about this team? Do you think flash in the pan? You think they can keep it going? We have them as high as plus 290 to win the division. What do you think of them going forward?
I mean, I can't give you any stats about their offense that's going to be negative. Like, their stats right now are absolutely ridiculous on offense. And it's been against a really easy strength of schedule of opposing defenses. But at the same time, you can't take it away from them how dominant they've been. With that said, I'm kind of expecting some regression to start to hit for this Washington offense, just based off the fact that, if you just review the personnel, this offense, coming into the year, this was widely considered a bottom 5 offensive line. This is still a weaponry that, outside of Terry McLaurin and the skill position players, guys like Zach Ertz, Noah Brown, Luke McCaffrey, they're not awful, I guess, but they're definitely not upper half of the league. It's just, how long can I expect Jaden Daniels to just play like CJ Stroud played last year? I mean, maybe it's sustainable and he continues to do it. But, also, I think I spoke about this maybe a week or two ago. Daniels takes a lot of hits. How sustainable is it that he's going to stay healthy? I think that he's going to be an injury risk throughout the rest of the year. And let's not forget that this defense is still one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So I'm not jumping. Obviously, they're way better than expectation before the year, but I'm also not jumping on the bandwagon of people are saying that they're in the same tier as like Philadelphia power rating wise.
Okay, so maybe lots of overs in their futures. Hopefully, Daniels does not follow in the footsteps of RG3. Okay, let's get into some of this Week 5 action. Before I get your thoughts on the actual matchup, let's talk this game situation here. Of course, I'm talking about the London game. We get an early start. It's all-day football for us NFL fans and bettors here on Sunday. So we have the Vikings and Jets at 10:30 Eastern start. So as a professional handicapper with these international games, whether it be in London or Germany, what are you looking at here? Are you digging into like what special criteria are you applying to your handicap, or is it kind of best not to overthink these games?
I'm definitely looking into the field whenever it's an uncommonly used field. Like in week 1, there was the Brazil game where it's a field that's never been played on for an NFL game. You're just trying to do all your work and see what the field conditions are possibly like, how it's going to affect the game. I know in that week 1 Brazil game, a lot of the defensive players had trouble getting footing. A lot of the players overall had trouble getting their footing down. And when that happens, it tends to benefit the offense just because the defense is forced to react quickly. So I look at the field conditions. I know for this specific game, the dome, or it's an open roof for this game. So there could be some wind. So I'm definitely looking into that, seeing how it's going to affect the total, some props in the game. And also just looking at the travel with the game. I know a lot of people believe that it's beneficial to get there earlier, just to get your body to get more adjusted to the time zone change. I know when Jacksonville played like the 2 straight London games, that was a big handicapping factor that they were there for a week. They were accustomed to the schedule and the time difference. So those are all the factors that I'm looking for typically when I'm doing a overseas game.
Okay, let's look at this matchup. The Vikings, I don't know, I'm kind of surprised by this. They're favored by just 2.5 points despite their hot start. A total of 43.5. You know, we know how it works with betting, but on paper, I think everything kind of points to the Vikings here. Brian Flores, the hottest coordinator in football, going against that Jets offense that looked really spotty. That offensive line did not look very good last week versus the Broncos. So what are your thoughts on the matchup?
I like the matchup from Minnesota. I think that the Flores defense could give Aaron Rodgers a lot of trouble. There's only one defense in the league that's blitz heavier than the Minnesota Vikings, and it's the Denver Broncos. And look at what that blitz just did to Aaron Rodgers and the Jets offense. The only hesitation like that I have with it is if this game was played last week, like market ratings, this is a pick 'em. And now, just based off what happened last week, we're now laying 2.5 with Minnesota. So I don't know if the power rating value is there yet, but just like matchup wise, I tend to lean towards the Vikings in this one.
Let's go Vikings. As everyone knows, I am a hater of the New York Jets. I was very happy to see them lose on Sunday. Okay, another interesting matchup here. The Ravens, all of a sudden, they look like Super Bowl contenders again. They head to Cincinnati, trying to put their season back together after picking up their first win of the season against the Panthers. Bengals, a 3-point dog at home. Total on the high end, 50.5 points. What do you make of this one?
If 3 start to appear, maybe some interest in Cincinnati. I spoke about, I believe it was last week when I was talking about the Burrow comeback player of the year. Like, this Bengals offense is playing really well this year. And they had another really good game against, it's a terrible Carolina defense, but the Bengals offense has played good pretty much against everybody this year, aside from the opening dud in the New England game. So I just think that it might be, again, a little inflated on Baltimore based off the absolute ass kicking that they had against Buffalo in prime time last week. So 3 would be appealing if we got to that with Cincinnati.
Okay, yeah, Cincinnati tends to play good teams pretty well, right? It's but if the Patriots come to town, they're going to be in trouble. Okay, so let's get into a couple of your best bets here for the week. You have two of them. Speaking of the Buffalo Bills, they were an absolute buzzsaw in weeks 1 through 3. And kind of a no-show performance there on Sunday Night Football. They only scored 10 points against the Ravens. Very interesting matchup in Houston, taking on the Texans. Maybe a bit of an underwhelming start here for the Texans. They got their doors blown off by the Vikings, and they kind of struggled to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. We have the Texans favored by a point, total of 47.5. Who do you like in this one?
I like Houston in this game. I know that a lot of times it's not always wise to just play against a team that got embarrassed in primetime. They're actually +1 right now, Houston. It just flipped to they're the underdog.
Oh, wow.
No worries, producer Mick. But yeah, I think that, Buffalo, Khalil Shakir is banged up. Like, we're not sure if he's going to play. That's the most reliable weapon that Buffalo has. Buffalo is still dealing with injuries to Terrell Bernard at linebacker. They lost Milano in the preseason. Teron Johnson is possibly still out for this game. Taylor Rapp, their starting safety, is going to be out for this game. A lot of the defensive injuries are adding up for the Buffalo Bills. And this is a defense that, like last week against Baltimore's offensive line, which has struggled most of the season, I couldn't even believe this. Their defensive line recorded a pressure percentage of 1.2% against this Ravens offensive line. I've just been high on Houston this entire season. I've been arguing that they could be the best overall roster in the AFC. They had 2 phony non-covers against Indy with a backdoor touchdown. Chicago fumbling at the 1 in the fourth quarter, giving up a backdoor field goal. They outgained Jacksonville by over 1 yards per play last week. I think that they're pretty similar power rating wise to Buffalo. They also are reportedly getting Tank Dell back for this game. They're likely to get Joe Mixon back, which thank God, because I cannot watch Cam Akers get any more inefficient carries for this Texans team. So I just think that the wrong team's favored in this game, and that Houston should be favored at home. So give me Houston.
Should be a good one either way. I like the under in that game. Okay, so from a pretty good matchup between two teams who should be there come playoff time to two teams, one of these teams won't, but the Carolina Panthers showing a little fight all of a sudden. They no longer look like the worst team in football. They could be in a lot of fun games here. They're in Chicago taking on the Bears. Caleb Williams getting better with each passing week here. Bears favored by 4, total of 42. What do you think for this one?
I like Carolina +4 in this game. So this offense is 7th in EPA per play since Andy Dalton took over. And believe it or not, this offensive line has allowed the lowest pressure rate in the NFL this season, according to 33rd team. They played well against Cincinnati. I thought they had a better success rate. They were first in goal from the 2 away from exceeding expectations and covering in that game. The defensive injuries are obviously super concerning for Carolina. This is probably the league's worst defense, but Chicago had only 264 yards of offense against another horrific defense in the Rams. They were arguably outplayed in that game. The Rams had a turnover that led to a 16-yard Bears touchdown drive, and the Rams moved the ball pretty much at will. It was just a lot of settling for field goals in the red zone. And it just comes down to I have a hard time trusting this Bears offense and Caleb Williams to win by margin again. I mean, I know that they did it against Tennessee. I know that they did it against the Rams, but both those box scores showed a lot of positive variance that Chicago had in those games. So I would look towards Carolina +4.
Okay, there we have it. Actually, before you go, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I don't even know if you watch baseball. I don't think you bet it, but give us a World Series prediction. Playoffs start today.
I don't even know who's Yankees, Dodgers. They're in it, right?
Yeah.
They got high seeds, right?
There we go. Well, the 2 biggest favorites. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, that's my pick. We get Judge and Ohtani in the World Series. I don't know. I'm the wrong guy to ask, but
Major League Baseball would be very happy with that, but we'll probably end up getting Guardians versus Brewers. Awesome. All right, Hitman. Well, best of luck with those picks that you gave out on the show today. Best of luck with the rest of your handicapping this week, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next Tuesday.
Appreciate it, Joe. Thank you.
Yes, sir. The man right there. Chalky World Series pick. Okay. Speaking of baseball, let's get into it. Let's bring in our guy, Johnny Metler, Johnny Mets, a.k.a. the Magic Ass Man. We'll talk a little baseball. I will do the heavy lifting here with the baseball picks. And at the tail end of this, we're going to get into some NBA coverage. A lot of people in the live chat. Guys, what is your best bet today for Major League Baseball? I'm on a bunch of props here in the first 5. Going to give those out here in a matter of seconds. But we say hello to John. John, who's your World Series prediction?
I'm going to go with the Tigers. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'll go with the Tigers. I actually do have a bet on them, but it's not going to win. So I'd be happy. I really just want them to get I'm not in Houston. Jingles put that out there. I was talking about going to Houston. The 2:30 time slot was just not the best time slot to travel and go watch games and stuff. But I really just want them to get an ALDS and come back home and get a home game out of this. It's kind of the drag of this playoff format where, your team makes the playoffs, but you don't really get to see a home game unless they make it to the next round. And then they could be down 2-0 coming home too. So kind of drag from that standpoint.
Yeah, I'm going Phillies over Astros. Go with the experience of the Astros to get through to the World Series, but I think the Phillies will finally break through this version of the team. They've gotten right up to that finish line a couple times over the past couple seasons, but they have not been able to break through. I don't know. I think it's going to be a good month here for baseball. We got off to a good start with the Mets Braves doubleheader there, a bit of an appetizer for the playoffs. And maybe they got their fingers crossed, man. They are praying that this thing breaks right for them. And if they get a Yankees-Dodgers World Series, that would be the biggest World Series in a very, very, very long time. Jingles on the Astros with me. Okay, let's rip through. I'm going to do a best bet for every single game in the playoffs on every single show that we're doing Monday through Friday when we have baseball. Sometimes you can get back into a corner with these picks if it's one game and you got to make a bet. I will always tell you guys, like, hey, this is a bit of a tricky situation. I don't necessarily love this bet, but if I have to place a bet, this is the bet I'm going to go with. And that is the case for the last bet I'm going to make out of the 4 today. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's go in chronological order of when the games will be played. Let's start down in Houston, where Jon Metler's Detroit Tigers are in town. I'm going to be backing Framber Valdez of the Astros to go over 17.5 outs. This man is in elite form right now. A 1.65 ERA since the start of August. He's great at home. He's 9-1 against this number in his last 10 starts at home. A 1.49 ERA in those 10 games. And he is a left-handed pitcher. It has been a rough stretch for the Tigers versus left-handed pitching. 25th in OPS over the last month and the second highest strikeout percentage. He's had pretty good success against this lineup. Their hitters have a 685 OPS against him, 65 combined at bats. He faced them in May in Detroit, and for what it's worth, he threw 7 innings in that game. Okay, next up, let's go to Baltimore, where the Kansas City Royals are in town. We're going to back the Orioles in the first 5 innings. We want to stay away from their bullpen. Their bullpen's in rough form right now, so they need to be leading at the end of 5 innings to cash this bet. The Royals, they're kind of limping into the playoffs offensively. They've been awful. Dead last in OPS over the last 2 weeks, 25th in hard contact percentage, only 3 home runs for them over the last 2 weeks. The Orioles, meanwhile, pretty decent form, 10th in OPS over the last 2 weeks. Corbin Burns is absolutely peaking right now. This is the best he's looked this season. A 1.29 ERA over his last 6 starts. In 121 combined at bats, Royals hitters have a 5.95 OPS against him. Cole Reagan's on the mound here for the Royals. The last time the Orioles faced him earlier in the season, they smashed him for 7 earned runs in that one. And I think we should expect a little, this is easier said than done, but we should expect a little bit of urgency from the Orioles. As you recall, they had the great regular season last year. I think they had over 100 wins. Then they absolutely flopped in the playoffs. They got swept by the Rangers. And this has been a good spot for them. At home, they rank 3rd in Major League Baseball in runs scored in innings 1 through 5. Kansas City 21st on the road. So we'll go with the Orioles to have a lead at the end of 5. Next up, everyone loves the Mets, right? They might win this game, but I don't think Luis Severino is going to have a good performance. I'm going to fade him. I'm going to go under his outs recorded total of 16.5. I had a little juicy minus 140. I do think it is worth it, though. So this guy is not a big game pitcher. 43.2 innings of work as a Yankee in the playoffs. He had a 5.15 ERA. He only went over this number twice in 11 appearances for the Yankees. Brewers hitters have had his number, a bit of a small sample size here to be fair, but they do combine for a 953 OPS and 45 combined at-bats. They faced him to start the season. I think it was the season opener. 11 hits, 6 runs scored by the Brew Crew in that one. And he's not good on the road, guys. 1-5 against this number in his last 6 starts on the road, where he has a 6.07 ERA. So nightcap in San Diego. This is the one I did have a little bit of trouble with. I like this bet. I don't love it. Any word yet on who's starting for the Braves? I don't think they named their starter yet. But here's the approach I'm going to take with this one. Michael King on the bump here for the Padres. This isn't necessarily a fade of him. This is more support for the Braves. And I think it's a low number. We're getting plus 130 odds. So King over 4.5 hits allowed. This is his first start in the playoffs, by the way. Sometimes you don't get the same version of a player in the regular season compared to the playoffs. No one's hitting it harder than the Braves right now. First in hard contact percentage over the last 2 weeks. Third in batting average, so a lot of those hard hits getting through the infield. Their offense has been great on the road here as well. Second in batting average over the last month. And so they're in great offensive form here, the Atlanta Braves. Now, the game situation, not ideal for Atlanta, playing a doubleheader yesterday, and you got to fly cross country. But it's not unusual. It's not rare. This is Major League Baseball, where they're playing 6-7 days a week, often making these cross-country flights. So it's not ideal. Like a lot of people, I'm sure you're incorporating that into your handicap as a way to fade the Braves. And maybe they are impacted by that. It's a little bit of guesswork here, though, guys. So, yeah, King over 4.5 hits allowed. He very well might have a great game here and allow 5 hits. Plus 130. I like the odds on that one very, very much. Okay, so 22.5 units during the regular season for yours truly in Major League Baseball. You know, it was that 20-unit mark. I passed it, I think, at the end of May. I got up to around 25 at the All-Star break. In August, I torpedoed. I think I lost around 10 units in August. And then we had that, it was like a 14-2 run to close out September. So I'm pretty happy with that mark for the regular season. Hopefully we can keep our heads above water here in the playoffs. A lot of people, I don't know, Braves struggled batting yesterday and just limped in, but we'll see. Man, the Braves have no luck whatsoever. Like, I give this team a ton of credit, John. Spencer Strider goes down early in the season. Acuna goes down. That's their best hitter and their best pitcher. They still fight to make the playoffs. Meanwhile, everyone's all excited. Hey, Chris Sale, you know, what a bounce back season for him. He's done, isn't he? He's not pitching in the playoffs for them? Back spasms?
Did you see what happened yesterday with that futures market?
Yeah, break this down for us.
That was so to lead the MLB in strikeouts, Tariq Skubal, and I think he was available like 80, 100 to 1 is kind of what I've seen tickets preseason. He's never really thrown the amount of innings you need to win that market. So he was quite a long shot, but he was going into yesterday about, I think it was 228, and then strikeouts, and Sale was 225. Sale was 3 behind him. I know Sale was 3 behind him. And so a lot of people who had Skubal futures tickets to win, they were betting the Mets to win the first game with the idea that would make Sale pitch the second game. So that was kind of their hedge, the money line bet Mets game 1. Well, they ended up double dipping because the Mets won and then Sale didn't pitch and Skubal won the market. And then the flip side of that is like just the worst absolute beat you could probably have in a futures market, because I'm sure Sale was also a really good price, was the, you know, other people were hedging Braves to win game 1 who had Sale with the idea that he wouldn't pitch game 2, right? And they ended up losing both. So just like from a futures hedging standpoint, just really, really good win for like one side of it. Whoever, if you did decide to hedge and you had Skubal, then the flip side is if you had Sale, I mean, you go into that day thinking, I'm going to win something, right? I have the hedge here, or I have the thing on Sale, and you walk away losing both. That's tough. If you know someone who had that, text them today. Let them know
Ugh.
you're thinking about them. That is a brutal beat that he got scratched, and you just didn't even see that coming. I mean, I don't even follow baseball, and I was like shocked when that came across.
What a burn. That over in the Dolphins game last night. What a burn that was as well. I almost took the under. I was like, everything points to the under here, but I stayed away from that, and happy I did. Interesting situation here. Cloak in the live chat over on YouTube says, hey, I got Lindor to steal a base at plus 900. Should I just cash out? It moved to plus 290, and I made 100 without the bet even starting. Man, I would let that ride at plus 900. That seems like just a mistake by the sports book. Hopefully they don't screw you over if Lindor gets on base and steals. I don't like betting stolen bases myself. A lot needs to happen. First of all, the guy needs to get on base. It has to be the perfect situation to steal a base. Then he does have to steal that base. But plus 900 odds, I would take your CLV trophy, keep your fingers crossed that he gets on base, the right situation, and he can steal one against Peralta.
There was another bet in the chat up there that looked pretty good. Someone said BetMGM had, I'm assuming, a special with Matt Olson, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Manny Machado, one of them to hit home run, plus 160, I think is what it said in the chat there. I don't have the projection stuff right in front of me, but I imagine all three of those guys combined is well over 50%, which would put that about even money. So plus 160 looks pretty good there. Someone put that in there.
There we go. Indeed. Okay, so those are our 4 picks for Major League Baseball. We're going to be right back tomorrow with more Major League Baseball betting coverage. But now let us shift gears. John, how many days until opening day here in the NBA?
22 days. We got games on Friday. The Celtics are in Abu Dhabi right now. They're playing on Friday.
Do you have a calendar at your house where you just cross through the X like a cake down to Christmas? Okay, smart guy. Okay, so our approach to covering NBA futures, we're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to do team betting previews. So we're going to take a look at all the high-profile teams. We won't be doing these for the Hornets and Wizards and Raptors, unfortunately. But the teams that most people care about, the high-profile teams, we're going to take a look at their futures odds, overall feelings about them, and then John is going to give a fan-friendly pick out for each team. So usually if you're a fan of the Knicks, for example, who we're going to be talking about here in a couple of seconds, you want to bet something to support the Knicks. So that's the approach John's going to take with his best bets for each of these teams. So let's start with those New York Knicks here. They were in the news. Shocking to wake up to this one on Saturday morning. We have a little graphic here with all of their futures odds, if producer Mick wants to pull that up. So the Knicks here coming off a 50-32 season. Exciting playoff run, cut short by injuries last year, but we take a look at them. They're 7-1 to win the NBA Finals, plus 290 to win the Atlantic Division. Win total of 54.5. That's up 4.5 from last season. Now, key additions, we'll break this one down. Karl-Anthony Towns, McCall Bridges. Key losses, Randall, Dante goes, and Hartenstein. John loves that pickup for the Thunder.
Yeah.
And his futures bet, we'll break this down in a second, plus 290 to win the Atlantic Division. Now, John, I don't like the trade to bring in Karl-Anthony Towns. You take him. I know him and Randall are 2 different players. They're only separated by 1 year in terms of age. I know Randall's coming off the injury this season, but it's not like Karl-Anthony Towns has been the pitcher of perfect health either. I don't like breaking up the Villanova guys, man. I love that story about this team, right? They got that brotherhood, and they broke that up for Karl-Anthony Towns, who I think is a very inconsistent guy. I don't think he's the acquisition to put this team over the top. That said, I still do like the Knicks. They got a lot of depth. We'll see if Thibodeau plays these guys into the ground during the regular season. He probably learned his lesson last year. But yeah, I like the Knicks. I'm on their bandwagon. I'm a Raptors fan, so I have to pick somebody who's actually going to be in the mix to cheer for. So I like the Knicks overall as a team. I love Brunson. I don't like the trade. What do you think of the trade, and what's your big picture view of the Knicks coming into the season? Then we'll get you to break down that best bet.
Yeah, my initial reaction was kind of shocked because it just came out of nowhere, and the NBA is really good about that. But it just further, they're trying to build a roster that matches the Celtics and matches what the Celtics do. And that is Towns. That's the kind of the player they needed. Like when you look at, you have the 4 wings and you have 2 guys who can defend, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. You can shoot threes. Everyone needs to be able to shoot threes. And kind of that hole was Mitchell Robinson, not necessarily a hole, but a hole to the shooting threes. He's a good defender, but there's no 3-point shooting coming from him. And it looks like they just wanted to go all in on that. And that's what the Celtics did too. That's what they do with Porzingis. Horford shoots 40% from 3. So it's just to match what the Celtics were doing. And you even saw like a week ago, they were kicking around, well, we might play Randall at the 5 because that Randall at the 5 would give him a lineup where all 5 guys can shoot the 3. Well, Towns is a 7-footer and a center who can rebound and kind of protect the rim and stuff. So it's a much better fit for what they were trying to do. It also does move Towns into a spot. He doesn't have to be a superstar, right? Like Brunson's the alpha of this team. And now you've grabbed Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns, who have had a lot of pressure on them to lead the Timberwolves, lead the Nets at some points in their career. Now they kind of get to slide into more secondary roles. So I think that helps. I really like what the Knicks did here. I didn't like the Dante DiVincenzo thing, like you said, the Nova Knicks, but then the reports came out the next day that he actually wasn't too fond of all of them being together and playing together and stuff like that. So,
okay.
So I don't know,
then.
Ray. I don't know if he asked for. I don't know if he asked for the trade. I don't know if he wanted to go to Minnesota. I don't know all the details and stuff. But when it came out the next day that he was looking for a bigger role and he wanted to go somewhere else, that changed my whole opinion on the trade. The night of, I was like, it seems really weird. I'm surprised they couldn't do this trade without DiVincenzo, but it came out the next day that he didn't really, his role was going to get suffocated. He was going to go to the bench and he was just playing 40 minutes per game in the playoffs. So I think that was obviously a big part of it too. So they're a serious contender to win everything, win a lot of games. They have a very, very strong team and it fits what the modern NBA is. They've done a really good job of putting this roster together.
They got grit. They are battle tested. I love Brunson. I love Hart. We'll see what Towns can bring to the table. He did get some pretty good playoff experience under his belt. I'm not the biggest fan of Towns. I think he's very inconsistent. But, he doesn't have to take the lead role by any means with this team. So let's go Knicks. And Dell making fun of me in the chat because I said I'm a Raptors fan, but I'm cheering for the Knicks. The Raptors pretty much came out yesterday in their media day and said, hey, we're rebuilding. Like how do you get behind that? You can't get excited about that as a fan. So when you're a fan of teams like the Miami Dolphins or the Toronto Raptors, you kind of have to look elsewhere for rooting interest, right? So let's go Knicks. Okay. One team I'm not very fond of. Let's discuss these guys next. If producer Mick wants to bring up the graphic for the Los Angeles Lakers. Dominating ESPN every morning. People talking Bronny James. So let's check them out. Don't even bother placing a bet on them to win the NBA Finals here. 40-1 Pacific Division plus 400. The win total 43.5. Now they are coming off a 47 win season. Key additions: Dalton Connect. Where's Bronny James Jr.? How insulting you guys not put him on here. Key losses, nothing big here. Torian Prince and Spencer Dinwiddie. And John's best bet here, Anthony Davis, 28 or more, 28 plus points per game. Here, I don't know, man. The Knicks got playing run written all over them. Again, I think the West is very competitive. Who knows what you're going to get out of teams like the Clippers. The Sacramento Kings could be on the rise with the addition of DeMar DeRozan. That's a pretty good starting lineup they have. So, yeah, I don't know. It's almost like it's going to be a 2-year retirement tour here for LeBron, I think. I got nothing against him, really. But your thoughts overall, big picture here for the Lakers.
So you see their win total saying 43.5. And last year I came on the show and I bet the under 48.5. And it was kind of because I thought their win total should be closer to that 43, 44 that you're seeing this year. And the roster's pretty much the same. The only thing that's changed is JJ Redick. I mean, Dalton Connect is also a shooter. He'll help them. It's really just JJ Redick coming in. And now JJ Redick, the good thing with JJ Redick is, like, if you listen to his podcast, you kind of know where he stands on a lot of things. And, he's a 3-point shooter. He's a lot of math. And I mean, his show is sponsored by DraftKings. He's kind of a bettor, right? Like, he's going to look at this from a math standpoint. And that's kind of where I look at, if you listen to what he's saying a lot of things about Anthony Davis, and they're going to shoot a lot more 3-pointers too. I'd imagine that's the math he's going to employ. But when he's talking about Anthony Davis, I think for these last couple of years, we've always assumed, like, LeBron James and even Stephen Curry, like, they need to be moved into more of a secondary role, and they've continued to have to carry their teams, like, in scoring and everything. I just don't think JJ Redick's going to make LeBron James do that. And when you listen to him talk about Anthony Davis, he's talking about like making him a hub. He's talking about he needs to touch the ball as much as possible. And Anthony Davis has, so if you're looking for a bet on the Lakers here, Anthony Davis had 1 year with the Pelicans where he did average 28 points per game. I think just feel like they're not going the defensive route. Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, these guys aren't good defenders. They're going the offensive route. And he said he's going to start the starting five with Rui Hachimura in there too. That's a lot of shooting. That creates a lot of space for Anthony Davis. So that's why I put the best bet. You'll find 28 plus points. If you go looking around, you'll see some plus 550 out there. There's one spot that has plus 950. And right there, that should just grab your attention right there. That's pretty far off market from what you're seeing elsewhere the Lakers. In terms of overall projection, yeah, probably a play-in team. I just don't think they're going to have to dial back LeBron's minutes and they don't really have the roster that they can do that. So it's a very tricky situation. I'm curious to see. I feel like they're going to make a move here. I don't think they can just run with this like purely. I feel like Austin Reeves, I know a lot of people love him. I feel like he's got to go and they got to get someone more defensive in there, but we'll see.
So much about navigating the regular season for an older team here, like the Lakers, with a guy with the injury history of Davis. LeBron James is getting older, and that typically doesn't point to a top 4 spot in the conference. So I think the Lakers. I think it's so like LeBron's legacy. It's so annoying, like that type of topic coming up. But I do think that's what these final 2 years are kind of about. It's the Bronny James thing, which is a massive story. I think it's kind of cool. Like a lot of people hate on it. And no, he probably wouldn't be in the NBA if it wasn't for his dad. But Giannis's brothers probably wouldn't be in the NBA if it wasn't for Giannis either. Are you that upset that Bronny James is taking a roster spot of another guy you've never even heard of? You probably shouldn't be, right? We'll get into that question here in a second, Janice. The Grizzlies, a lot of people like them this season. But, we're going to be doing a team preview every Tuesday and Wednesday. Tomorrow we are doing, I believe, the Celtics and the Golden State Warriors. But interesting question here we can tackle, John, from Janice. Ask any thoughts on Grizzlies at 40-1 to win the Southwest Division, win the Southwest Division at 3-1 with Ja Morant coming back full camp. The Grizzlies are a trendy pick coming into the season. I'm concerned that the Ja Morant thing might not correct itself. We'll have to see. But what are your thoughts on the Grizzlies? Looks like a pretty good starting 5 for them.
Yeah, I like the Grizzlies. That would be my pick to win the Southwest Division. I put them in that parlay. Same thing. You have Marcus Smart, defense player of the year. You have Jaren Jackson Jr., defensive player of the year. And then you have Vince Williams, who just came out. He's going to miss the start of the year, but he said he's trying to make an all-defensive team. It's a pretty good team when you have 2 defense players of the year and then you have a third guy who wants to be all defense. And then it's not like they don't have scoring on this roster too. Ja Morant, Desmond Bane. So they can play chess, right? And some teams can't. That's kind of the issue with the Lakers where there's not many moves they can make. They have their starting 5. They're good at scoring. They can't really counter a lot of moves. The Grizzlies are the opposite. You have Edey, 7'5" tall. That's a game changer. You take him out, maybe move Jaren Jackson Jr. to the 5, go smaller. They have lots of options. I love the Grizzlies.
If you need to pick one to be an all-star this season, Ja Morant or Zion, who would you pick?
Ja Morant. I go Ja Morant. Yeah, Zion, just his stats might there's a lot of guys on the Pelicans. So Ja Morant is the Grizzlies. So that I'd say Ja Morant.
It's kind of crazy that both of those guys have been disappointments for much different reasons, right? Zion can't stay on the floor and Ja Morant with the gun stuff. It's kind of crazy, but it was funny. One last NBA thing, then we'll wrap up. I saw a report, or I don't even know it's a report, just a tweet that the Bulls are still looking to get rid of Zach LaVine. Why do you think they can't find anyone to take him off their hands? Is his contract too out of control? What's the deal? He's a pretty good offensive player.
That's kind of both of them. His contract is massive. He's a good offensive player, but his defense is okay. And like his offense is more volume than efficiency. So it's just, he's not worth the money that he's getting paid. It's hard to take on. It's just one of those moves. It's kind of like when you'll see a lot of teams, kind of like the Hawks were an example of that, where it's like you just combine a bunch of offensive talent and it looks cool on paper, but like in terms of like actually winning, it just doesn't translate to anything. So I think that's just where it's just not he'd be a good, like, go to the Lakers and maybe LeBron sits out and he takes on the lead of scoring type thing, him and D'Angelo Russell. But in terms of like actually winning a championship, it's a big contract to eat. That doesn't really help you I'd say in the winning side of things.
I would love to see one of these dumb teams like the Hornets or the Wizards bring him in. Perfect fit based on how those teams have constructed their rosters over the past couple of seasons. Okay, let's recap my Major League Baseball picks. Playoff game starting here in a couple hours, I believe. John's Tigers in Houston. I like Framber Valdez to go over 17.5 outs. I'm going to take the Orioles' first 5 run line. I like Severino under 16.5 outs in Milwaukee, and Michael King over 4.5 hits allowed plus 130 on that one. Okay, so that does it for the Tuesday edition of Before You Bet, but we're going to be right back with you guys tomorrow. Our weekly conversation with Jon Metler. We're looking forward to talking to him. A lot of hot topics to cover in the NFL. We're going to be covering all the Major League Baseball playoff games, and Jon Metler will be back to talk some more NBA, talking Celtics and Warriors tomorrow. So thank you to John for joining. Thank you to Hitman for joining too. Thank you to producer Mick for producing. Thank you to BetMGM for sponsoring. And thank you, dear viewers, for tuning in. Best of luck with your bets today and tonight. We'll catch you guys again tomorrow. Woo!